Don't wait till the battle's over. Don't wait till the struggle ends. Shout out, shout out, right now. Shout out, shout out. Don't wait till you make it.
Hey, and welcome to the PHILLIP Show. It is Philip, and I am super encouraged that you are here. Let's grab our coffee. Oh, so you've seen this one before, but I'm going to tell you about it again. It's from our friends at Miami Valley Pottery, and I call it my Viking mug. I mean, you can put your whole coffee life into this thing and just keep, yeah, you can do that. So, as you know, this is June, and June is Pride Month, and the PHILLIP Show has partnered with Yellow Springs Pride as the official media sponsor to bring stories in and around the LGBTQ community, introducing you to amazing people with amazing journeys and amazing stories, and to give more advocacy, give more understanding, education surrounding people's stories and lives that are very similar to yours, to help dispel myths, bring people together, and maybe kind of align some misconceptions. And as I've said before, a lot of times when we don't know, there's the opportunity to make up a narrative about an entire group of people. So what we want to do, we want to give education. We want to kind of open the window and give you a peek into the lives of people. That way, you understand people. The more you know, the easier it is to walk alongside, to understand, and to be an ally, a partner, and all of that. So, yeah, it's Pride, and we're super excited. And I don't want to be here too long just talking about this. I want you guys to meet two amazing people. I know. So today we have two guests. We're super blessed. So let's jump into it. Kent is the music director for High Street United Methodist Church, and he is the chapel administrator at Wittenberg University, where he also teaches in the music department. Rick is an English professor at Wittenberg University also, and is a deacon at Christ Episcopal Church. They have been partnered for 27 years. Catch it. And this month is their 7-year anniversary. Amazing. They both are proponents of transgender advocacy, LGBTQ plus storytelling, and pride, visibility, and equality. So without further ado, please help me welcome Rick and Kent. Boom, there you are.
Oh, Philip.
Hi there.
Hi.
Philip.
Good to be with you.
Thank you. How's it going today? How are you all doing?
Doing great. Doing great.
well.
It's good to be in the middle of Pride Month and to feel the good energy all around.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Glad
Awesome.
to be with you.
Oh, thank you, Kent. Thank you so much. So I'm super stoked about your story, and what I would like to do, and Rick, we'll start with you.
Okay.
All right. So you're an English professor at Wittenberg and a deacon at Christ Episcopal Church. So I want to get into how you all's journey came to be and how you all became the we of it all. But
Yeah.
I want to start with you. How did you, growing up, kind of your journey take a different turn and say, hey, I think I'm me, and I also want to be involved in church?
Right. I'll try and give you the short version of that story. So I did grow up in the Episcopal Church. That was where I was baptized and altar boy and all that stuff. And then when I don't know, just like a lot of people, when you hit your teenage years and then after, some of the language of the church doesn't seem to be answering your questions, or at least the way it was, we were hearing it on Sunday mornings. And I kind of drifted away from it. And the whole time in that period, I knew I was gay. I was acting as if I weren't gay, but I knew it on some level. And you just thought, well, this will go away, and then the rest of my life will be convenient, like all the pictures that we're familiar with.
Yeah.
Like the family will look like the traditional family. And I think what really changed for me was when I went to graduate school, and that was went to the University of North Carolina. I grew up in Ohio. It took me outside of Ohio. And it was being on a college campus where, I was studying English literature, but it's a kind of place where all kinds of questions are safe.
Sure.
And there are gay people walking around, transgender people around, and they were organized, they were politically active. And you started feeling like I can let that part of myself be expressed here and see what that feels was like. So that was like the first time walking into a gay bar for me, was being in North Carolina. I had been in the parking lot of a gay bar in Akron, Ohio at one point, and I was too scared to go in because I thought, if I walk in there, who's going to see me? And then, you know, the news will spread like wildfire. But North Carolina felt safe. And so that's where I started both thinking, this is who I am. So I can start thinking differently. And then I fell in with the Quaker tradition there too. And that was safe, social justice oriented, less interested in doctrine than it is in conscience. And that really felt comfortable to me. And so those are my roads kind of into a gay identity, and then also back into Christianity as a social justice expression. And that led me back to the Episcopal Church. But the being in North Carolina was also where I met Kent. I took a summer job at working as office help there, and they were walking me around to all the different offices, introducing me to folks, and opened the door to the office where Kent worked, and I had to look away real quick because I was, oh my gosh, you know.
Oh my goodness.
And so yeah, it just hit me all at once. So I think my story really comes together on a college campus in North Carolina, where I could be gay, where I could be Christian in a new way, and where I fell in love.
Wow. So Kent, for you, did you have the same beginning journey? Like you already knew, and then you went through life with the understanding and the knowledge?
So it was in some parts it was similar, but in many parts it was different. So for me, church was growing up in North Carolina, small southern farm town, in a Pentecostal tradition. And my mom was the church choir director, dad was head deacon. And coincidentally, I grew up with an older brother who was our minister, assisted my mom. He was a church musician as well. Everybody on my mom's side of the family was either a preacher or a church musician. And we come from a big family. My late brother was also gay. And so I grew up in a family where by the design and the social mores of the time, if you were gay growing up in a small southern Pentecostal church, you should have been ostracized and probably kicked out of the house. The scene that was being played out before me from my family, my mom and dad, was in regards to my brother, was, this is our child. We might not understand everything, but we love our child. And so my brother was the exception to the rule, and that was the example that was played out before me. And in our small community of Oxford, North Carolina, just above Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, people just knew my brother. They were just like, okay, he's gay, but he was unapologetically who he was. And, he was, for the lack of a better term, fabulous. My brother came out just a few years post Stonewall, so time was different back then. So he dared to be who he was in a time where things could have been a lot different. And so that's what I saw played out before me. As time went on, I knew that I was different. And growing up in a time where the Black church had these certain dictates that you heard things across the pulpit being described, not necessarily in my church, but I know in other churches. It wasn't uncommon to hear gay slurs just bandied about in the pulpit in a sermon. And as I got older, I realized they're talking about me. And so I knew that I had to push down whatever feelings I was experiencing as I grew into puberty. So as high school went on, I became the academic. I became the athlete, well-rounded student, the good little boy, almost married the high school cheerleader. As I got into college, thank goodness that didn't happen. Got into college and found my tribe. That college was the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Found my tribe in the gospel choir, where about 2/3 of the tenors were just like me. They were the good little boys in their neighborhood churches, sang in the choir like I did, and we found each other. And after college, tried to date. Like I said, almost married. 58 days from doing that. Thank goodness that didn't happen. Tried to date women a few times after that. It just didn't work out. Went to this place called the Institute of Government where I met Rick. Before I met Rick, though, fell in like with a colleague, and that was like my wake up call. I was like, "Boy, you need to deal with this."
Yeah,
and so,
I do have to interject. I'm gonna have to steal that. I fell in like.
I fell in like, yeah.
I love it.
I fell in like really hard, and I never told him. I think he knew though, but he was such a good friend that we never pushed the issue. And but it was my wake up call to deal with me. And so it was at that time, here I am in my early 20s. I did a whole lot of reading. I read John McNeill, Daniel Hominiak, and some of these other prolific writers at that time who did a lot of writing and scholarship on gay identity and religion and the intersection of the two, because my spiritual life was very important to me, but I also knew I had a gay identity to reconcile with it. And after reading original Greek and Hebrew text and those 6 clobber passages and reading them in context, I gained an understanding of things that they never discussed with you in Sunday school. They conveniently hid them. And when I gained the understanding of them, I was thinking, you know what, I'm okay. And so after trying to date a little bit and things going a little awry, I decided I would just be the confirmed bachelor and I would be okay. And it was at that point that my office door opened and Rick walks into the office door, and that began our 27-year journey. And here we are.
Wow, that is amazing. So Rick, for you were, I don't want to say out, but your realization came earlier. So how?
The one that I kept to myself?
The one that you kept to
Yeah, that was early on. I think I always knew. I always knew.
As did I.
How interesting was it, or how surprising was it for you to know that, but then to find the person that you would be spending your life with in an unbeknownst kind of situation and place? It's not something you're looking for. It just in an academic area.
Yeah. I don't. That's a great question, and it just makes me feel grateful too for that moment. Where things happen like that. It really was kind of storybook, and it's kind of a gift of my life that there's not a day that goes by where I don't have that warm feeling that came on me from day one. So I don't know. I don't use the language of soulmate very often, but I think I understand it. I know what it means to feel knit to someone. And as I'm getting older, it feels, I don't know, just more surprising that this is something that's an ordeal at all. That when people are falling in love, gender is secondary, and there is something that just brings people together and makes their life happy. So I've just been fortunate to have that experience.
And I think there's
Yeah, I was just going to say, it just happened. It happened in North Carolina, so I'm grateful to have gone to that university, to be in that spot at that moment where a spark could fly. Yeah,
I think it's so hopeful and so encouraging and inspiring that neither one of you were in the process of looking.
Right.
And it was just like you met. Did you become friends? Like how did it work out to say, oh, there he is, and the other one's like, oh, there he is.
Definitely. In fact, neither of us knew that the other was gay when we initially met. We both were just hoping that the other was.
Yeah, I had my fingers crossed the whole time.
So did I. But neither of us wanted to spook the other one, and so we just took time during Rick's entire appointment there to get to know each other. We went to baseball games together. We went. A colleague hooked us up with tickets to a dance on Duke University's campus. So we just took the time that summer getting to know each other, and it was at Rick's house where we ordered a pizza and watched a movie that things were kind of uncomfortable. And he actually stopped the movie, put it on pause, and said, it was a bad movie. It was an awful movie.
Oh, okay.
And he said, there's something I need to tell you. And I said, well, yeah, what is it? And he said, it might affect our friendship. And I said, well, what is it? I'm here fearing that, he's going to tell me something devastating. And he said, well, I'm gay. And my response was just to break out in laughter. And I think he was a little crestfallen. He said, well, that wasn't what the reaction I expected. And I said, I've been agonizing over the past 2 weeks on how to tell you the same thing. And we both the tension just left the room. And then he said, well, there's something else I need to tell you. And I'm like, oh God, what's next? And he said, well, the first time I saw you, I was attracted to you. And I laughed again. And I said, yep, same thing. But even then, we didn't just fall into a relationship right then, because the other fortunate thing was we were both just about at the same point in our journeys and coming out to ourselves and just developing who we were as individuals. So I count it a blessing that we could develop who we were and have this journey together. That could have been so different. And I know so many people who, once they accepted who they were, their journeys took different paths and they were much rockier. This life journey for me has been so wonderful just because I've had someone to share it with who was at the same point I was when I started.
That is awesome. Rick, let me ask you, how, different or helpful has the beginning and to now to this point, your relationship been because you started off as friends?
That's a good question. I hadn't thought about that. There's part of me that thinks that it would be about the same. That if our first night out together was a date, I think we'd be in a similar place now. I almost feel like friendship was the word we were using to describe something that we were afraid to call something else. Like all that chemistry is still going on. When you're sharing that space with someone that you feel that connection with, the chemistry is still there. You can call it what you will, but that's still there. It's like James Baldwin said, you can't invent your mooring posts, he called them. You're just going to fall in love with who you love, whoever crosses your path that fits that. It's going to be a surprise to you. And he said the gift in life is to figure out how to say yes to what's given you. So I think that was friend was maybe our way of saying yes to what was happening there.
Wow.
And it would have happened if we had used a different name or understood it differently.
Wow.
That's my guess of how it
was. Yeah. Kent, you made a point, and I want to quickly give you the opportunity to try and answer this. In the church, a lot of times, I think you kind of experienced this because it sounded like you went kind of down this road. You said that you were dating and you almost got married. There's this perception or this initiative, if you will, that you can to not act on being gay and just pursue, I guess, a heterosexual relationship. I don't know really how that would work, but what I want to ask you is, how did that impact you when you're trying to make it fit, or you were trying to go down that road? You kind of knew that that's not the road for you, but you were doing it anyway. What did that kind of do to you and your emotional status when you're trying to form this life that may not or is not really you?
That is an excellent question, Philip, and I'm so glad you asked it. First of all, let me preface it by saying that being someone who's LGBT plus in a situation like that, that's one of the original don't ask, don't tell situations. And I don't use that term lightly. But when it has a lot to do, I think at the crux of it is the need, the yearning, if you will, to belong to community. Community is at the crux of it all. And so you have two factions warring against each other, the need to be who you are and to fulfill who you are as a person. And then that's warring against the need to belong to community. Mm-hmm. And do you deny yourself fulfillment as a person, your full human fulfillment of humanity, just so you can belong and not only belong, but belong according to other people's expectations, just to make them happy, while you are crushing your soul. Is that living? Is that life? Being part of the gospel music, the Black gospel music community, I can tell you personally, and I've been doing Black gospel music for 40 plus years on a national level. There are colleagues who envy what I have with Rick, and I've had conversations with them. They think I'm brave just for being who I am. But they are in marriages. They are in heterosexual marriages, and they know that they don't want to be, but they have to play the role. And they come to, I see them at conventions year after year, and they smile, and they that's the one time they can kind of be who they are, or at least let down their guard. But then after the convention is over, after that week, they have to go back to their hometowns and they have to play the role. And it's tiring. And at that point, I knew there came a point where I knew I couldn't do that. I think one of the best things that my ex-fiance could have done, and no, I'm not throwing shade at her, the best thing she could have done was to cheated on me 3 times. I thank God every day she cheated on me, because had she not, at my age and at that point of my development as a young 20-something, 23-year-old, I could have married her. And I wasn't developed enough emotionally and mentally to walk away, I think, at 23 years old. I would have probably done it. Thank goodness she did what she did, because I walked away. I was strong enough to walk away at that point. But it also took me down another path to then say, I need to be true to who I am. So one thing led to another, which led to another. It could have easily gone another way, but I am so glad that at some point I did find the strength to deal with me. But I know so many people for whom that wasn't, they're living the life right now. And then there are some who went into traditional marriages and could not stay in them. So I'm one of the lucky ones.
Well, I thank you for being really transparent, because I just wanted to kind of put a real story and a real testimony with somebody that had to face that particular decision and how you faced it. Because I know a lot of people, like you were just saying, they face that decision differently and they may make a different choice. I just wanted to hear what it does, how that decision impacts you. And I'm glad that you shared that. So thank you for sharing that.
I've played at some of the weddings.
Yeah. Wow. So, okay. So you guys are married. You're coming up on your seventh year anniversary. Rick, to you all as a couple, if you can speak plurally, we're just going to make up words. I know you're both in education. Yeah. Plurally is a word right now.
Yeah.
So we're going to speak plurally. So do you have aligned passions and interests when it comes to the LGBT community, and where you see it and where you'd like to see it grow and how you want to make an impact?
Yeah, I think so. I think there are, one, we're just grateful for the change that we have seen. I guess is kind of relevant to the question. Both Kent and I are similar in that we grew up in towns that weren't malicious, but we don't really want to go back. We don't have any nostalgic feeling for living in those spaces again. And I think that was because we felt something inside that community wasn't able to echo back to us. There were no people who were openly gay. And there were no messages that would say, if you were gay, we're going to welcome you here. So we just kind of, we're just of the mindset that where we are now is better than where we've come from for that part of our identities. And so we're grateful for the things we can do now to help the young people see those echoes of themselves. Now, one of the big differences is just the internet, so we didn't really get images of gay and lesbian people. Well, you can get those images anytime you want now just by opening up a computer and doing some searches, and you can find communities there. But we've nonetheless tried with the Pride Festival in Springfield, like the Pride Festival in Yellow Springs. We've put up some billboards that celebrate LGBTQ people of color to make sure people coming up see echoes of themselves, stories that are affirming to them. And so I think we would, if we were looking for more change, we'd want to keep going down that path of ways of affirming the young people who are doing those searching. And we're definitely seeing too that as the world opens up a bit, or at least this country opens up a bit, the questions being asked and the identities that are coming out of queer experiences are different. Just before the pandemic, kind of our last Pride before the pandemic, so this was in 2019, we had these flags that we were selling. We had the gay pride flag, we had the asexual flag, we had transgender flag, we had the bisexual flag, pansexual flag. We were trying to get them all represented, and the bisexual flags sold out in like 20 minutes.
Oh.
And I remember when one of our entertainers was asking, where are all my gay men? And, have everybody cheer. And where are all my lesbian friends? And then cheers. And when that performer said, and where are my bisexual friends? It was this uproar. So there's just this sense that as time moves along, the needs are going to change because people are defining with new freedoms. I think people are feeling something different within themselves. And it does seem to have more to do with continuums, identities that are on continuums. So I guess anything that we can do to affirm that new openness to identities would be what I would say is where our hearts are right now. And of course, the transgender community is just being embattled. They've become the kind of the whipping post for kind of creating political solidarity. And I remember what that was like in 2004 when in Ohio, the constitutional amendment to ban same-sex marriage, that was the whipping post then. That was the great unifier for, a political movement. And it didn't feel good. And so anything we can do to kind of push against all that demonizing that's happening at the expense of the transgender community, I think would be where our energies are now too.
Wow.
And Phillip, if I could add to that, because I think it's very important, is an importance to recognize within the community and outside of the community too, the importance of intersectionality. Because I think at the heart of intersectionality is empathy, and
Gotcha.
that you don't have to have a pony in a certain race to be someone's advocate and to be someone's cheerleader. I think it all starts with empathy. So intersectionality, people think it's the word of the day, but if people look at the history behind the word, it's been around for a while. And its beginnings as a legal one that started in the 50s and 60s. So I think that's very important because I think that certain communities, we can, even within the LGBT community, we can quickly separate ourselves. And I think it's good to know that intersectionality is key. And I say that as a Black gay man. Who's a Christian, so.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
Those intersectionality is real.
Yeah. Okay, so as we close, this is what I want to get to. So you guys have been together for 27 years, married for 7, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I think actually coming up on 8. We're married for 7 now. It'll be 8 soon.
It'll be 8 in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, it'll be 8 in a couple of weeks. Wow. Mm-hmm. That makes me feel even more single. But okay, so there's a lot of stigma, there's a lot of misconceptions, there's a lot of stereotypes within the community, about promiscuity, about relationships not lasting. So you're breaking down a lot of stereotypes right now. If you could give some advice to those who are seeking relationships who may think they're afar off or they may not even be, attainable, what advice from you in a long-lasting relationship, what advice would you give? And I guess, Rick, we can start with you.
I was hoping you were going to say, Kent, we can start with you.
Gotcha.
Because I really do feel like we've cheated. It's just been easy. It's been so easy for at least for me. I won't speak for Kent on that one. Probably had a few more challenges, but it's not something that has taken skill. I'm happy when I come home. I park behind his car, and his car means he's home, and I'm happy he's home, and so that's just always been there. I don't know. I guess there are kinds of, and I guess I should say too, I have plenty of friends that I admire that, their lives would fit into that category of promiscuity, and they found ways of navigating an active and open sex life that is that's not hurting anyone, and is something that gives them pleasure and is part of their identity. So, as member of the Episcopal Church, I don't want to sanction that, but I, as a human being, I also don't want to send messages that might be saying one kind of life is more valid than another. Sure. I think, to ground it in just an ethical tradition, loving your neighbor is really at the bottom. And if you can love your neighbor and accommodate kinds of pleasure that don't hurt people, I think you're good. You're doing okay. In our case, I think there is that just that pleasure in knowing you have that one person who's your number one. That he's the person you always go to with any concerns that you have. It's the person that when good things happen, you're going to go there first and share that news, and that it's your other half kind of thing. So if there are ways in which some of the stereotypes of the gay life complicate that, having that other person who is your number one, I would say then you may want to reassess. Then, because having that number one is a treasure, and so just make that the priority, the value of that person, who is very good at echoing back your pleasure and your pain and hearing you, and make that sacred, and then the other parts of your life fit in around that.
That is awesome. Kent, quickly, what advice would you give?
I would say this: we in the LGBT community have been at a disadvantage because historically, all we've had shown to us are examples of heterosexual dating and heterosexual love, and so we had, and everything about us had to be subversive and clandestine. And so it's only now that we're seeing examples through media and what have you of LGBT people dating and having lives that look, traditional, if you will, for lack of a better word. So we haven't had those models. So now we're being the change we want to see, in a sense. Wow. And it doesn't necessarily it's not cookie cutter. Having said that, I guess my number one advice would be this: look, there's a difference between complimenting and completion. Look for someone who compliments you, not completes you. You have to bring your whole into a relationship. You don't want to be a half person or a partial person. You always hear the term, "Oh, he completes me, she completes me." That shouldn't be what you're looking for. You look for someone who compliments you. You be a whole person. Bring your whole into it, and look for someone who's going to bring his or her or their whole into the relationship, and to complement what you bring, and you complement what they bring, and that's a good start. And then, of course, there's always the traditional things like communication. If the lines of communication break down, then that's problematic from the beginning. And if I have to advocate for this last thing, get a puppy. Our dog Bailey is the center of our lives, and she makes things just wonderful. So.
Oh my goodness, I love it. That was a great way to close that up. Get a puppy.
Yeah, get a puppy.
I love it. But thank you so much, you both, for being so open and transparent and so passionate about each other and where you are in your life and your journeys. I really, really, really appreciate it. And taking time out today, this beautiful day, to come chat with us.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for Philip. Love your energy. Happy Pride Month.
Happy Pride Month.